Hello and welcome to the final of our 6 rural crime webinars. My name is Caron Chester and I'm the Regional Services Manager at New South Wales Farmers for the Western Division. Rural crime affects nearly everyone and New South Wales farmers are excited to have this ongoing valuable relationship with the New South Wales Police Rural Crime Prevention Team and to bring you the 2020 Tackling Rural Crime webinar series. These informative solutions-based sessions will help you to prevent rural crime on your property and in your community. I'm sure you will find these webinars of value. Please do not hesitate to ask questions in the questions tab throughout the webinar, and we will try to answer as many of your questions as we can. I would like now to welcome Detective Sergeant Bennett Nolan, who tonight will deliver the webinar on operational stock check and animal movement. Thank you, Bennett.
Thank you, Caron, for the introduction, and welcome and thank you everyone here for participating. As Caron said, we really do appreciate our relationship with New South Wales farmers, and a big thanks to them for organising this webinar series and their ongoing commitment to building relationships and contributing to rural crime, to tackling rural crime. Just one quick note, please feel free to send your questions through to the moderator, who will wait until after this presentation, and then we'll answer our questions. Now I'd like to introduce the rest of the team here tonight. We're lucky to have the whole leadership team from the Rural Crime Prevention team here tonight for the last webinar of the series. We've got Detective Chief Inspector Cameron Whiteside, Detective Sergeant Andrew McLean, Detective Sergeant Ty Johnson, and Detective Sergeant Damien Knott. They'll be available for questions at the end of this presentation. In 2017, Commissioner Mick Fuller made a commitment to the people of regional New South Wales to address incidents of rural crime in our state. What we'll show you here tonight is a slice of that commitment. Our team comprises of 52 members, including one Detective Chief Inspector, Detective Chief Inspector Cameron Whiteside, who is a State Rural Crime Coordinator based at Mudgee. There's also now 4 Detective Sergeants who are the Rural Crime Zone Coordinators based at Parkes, Moree, Cootamundra and Casino. Across the state, we've got 43 rural crime investigators who are specialised detectives located at 26 non-metropolitan locations all across New South Wales. We've also got 3 rural crime intelligence analysts who are civilians based at Parkes, Casino and Cootamundra, as well as 1 rural crime policy and project officer, Anne Brennan, based at Dubbo. This map outlines where our team members are located across New South Wales. You can see we're broken into 4 zones. We've got Central Zone, Northwest Zone, Northern Zone and Southern Zone. You can see there's a very good coverage of us across the state, so you should never be too far from a rural crime investigator if you need one. The rural crime investigators are subject matters and experts in rural crime. The rural crime investigator is a criminal investigator who is a subject matter expert in those issues. They're all detectives and they undergo the same training as all detectives in the New South Wales Police Force. In 2014, the New South Wales Police Force amended the definition of rural crime. We now define rural crime as incidents of crime, the impact on the function of the pastoral, agricultural and aquaculture industries. Now the key phrase there is impact on the function. So we'd like to stress to everyone listening here tonight that all police can take a report and respond to rural crime. The Rural Crime Prevention Team are subject matter experts and investigate complex rural crime offences. We also provide support to local police to report and respond to rural crime. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on Operation Stock Check and animal movement. This webinar will focus on the requirements around livestock movement in New South Wales and on the recently launched Operation Stock Check taking place across New South Wales. It won't cover off on all requirements in relation to transporting livestock, but it will give you a good overview and advice on where to go for more information. Now, stock theft is what we class as a quintessential rural crime. There's over 87,000 sheep and 9,000 cattle that have been reported stolen across our state in the past 5 years, which represents a reported value of nearly $18 million. And if you look at the research, this figure would represent probably only half of what's actually taken place. It has a significant effect on farmers and their livelihoods, particularly when many farmers have already faced very significant challenges recently with drought, bushfires and everything else that's been thrown at them. It can be particularly crippling in these times with low stock numbers and very high values to become a victim of livestock theft. Now, stock theft can prove very difficult to solve. It's a crime that's been around forever, and it's as hard as ever to solve, but we are always developing new techniques. It's often not until weeks or months later, when stock are mustered and counted, that they're discovered missing. Often there's no witnesses, no CCTV, no forensic evidence, and little else to go on. So sometimes a murder can be easier to solve than the theft of some livestock. As part of our efforts to combat stock theft, the New South Wales Police Force have recently launched Operation Stock Check, which is designed to prevent livestock thefts from occurring, to disrupt the movement and sale of stolen livestock through a high visibility strategy, and to respond appropriately to incidents of stolen livestock. Now, the aim of this operation is to greatly increase the number of livestock carrier inspections that are carried out across the state, and to do this by giving local police the training, the confidence and the opportunity to make livestock carrier inspections as normal a part of policing in a country area as something like conducting a random breath test. Now, what this means is that you may face a much higher chance of being stopped when you're transporting livestock, as you could be stopped by the local paddy wagon, the local highway patrol, detectives or rural crime investigators. Already, we've seen nearly a 300% increase in the number of livestock inspections being carried out across the state. Now, these inspections focus on checking livestock carrier compliance. If you're doing the right thing and have your paperwork in order, it shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes of your time. But it might just mean that that you or one of your friends or your neighbours avoids becoming a victim of livestock theft. And we want to make it clear that the operation isn't about targeting livestock carriers or farmers transporting their own livestock. It's about targeting stock thieves and increasing their perception of being caught, as well as the likelihood of them being caught, with the aim to prevent stock theft in the first place. We've emphasised to our staff that for innocent mistakes or minor technical breaches, a warning and education is often the best enforcement strategy. But hopefully over time, compliance will increase to a level where everyone's on board. By encouraging police to get out and speak to livestock carriers, we hope it will engage them more with those communities and may encourage people to feel more confident about passing on information or suspicions they could have about people involved in livestock theft. If the police are getting out there and stopping farmers and speaking to them, it really could help build up those relationships and hopefully increase the quality of the information that's coming through in relation to suspicious people in our communities that might be involved in livestock theft. We hope the operation will make stock thieves in these communities begin to realise that they might be stopped by any officer at any time, and they will soon recognise that there is too much risk involved in stealing livestock. We'll move on to the law in New South Wales when it comes to moving livestock. Now, it's been a requirement since about 1990 that a transported stock statement is carried whenever livestock are transported by a vehicle in New South Wales. This could be in the form of a transported stock statement called a TSS or a national vendor declaration called an NVD. Now, the laws were originally introduced to, well, at least in part, to help combat livestock theft. But later, with the introduction of the NLIS system and LPA programs, they're now really an integral part of helping ensure the traceability of livestock and to secure the integrity of Australia's red meat industry. For any normal movement of sheep, cattle, pigs and goats, a TSS or an NVD is required. There's a few very limited exceptions, but these primarily relate to moving horses or to obtaining veterinary treatment or emergency orders and those sorts of things. Now, the owner or the person responsible for the livestock must fill this in before the animals leave the farm, and they must provide a copy to the driver of the vehicle that's going to be carrying the livestock. That way, when the driver's pulled up by police, they can show the TSS or NVD and be on their way. As I said, that's been in place since 1990, but it hasn't always been followed. Part of this process requires every property in New South Wales on which livestock are kept to have a PIC number. Now, hopefully you're all aware of what these are. If you're not, you can apply for a PIC number at your nearest local land services office. Now, without going into all the requirements of the NLIS system, hopefully most of you are aware, but all cattle, sheep and goats that are to be moved off their property of birth should first be tagged with an NLIS tag. Now, this tag is linked to the PIC number of the property of birth and should remain with them for the rest of their life. Each time those animals are transferred to another property, they must be transferred on the NLIS system to the new PIC number, and this will allow it to be traced through every PIC it's ever been on from paddock to plate. The NLIS system, together with the MVDs, should form a complete picture of the animal's movements throughout its life. We'll show you here what a transported stock statement could look like. There's several different versions. Some livestock transporters have their own consignment notices that have been approved as an NVD, a transported stock statement. This is one of the Department of Primary Industries transported stock statements. They contain details and must contain details, including the date of transportation, the address the stock were loaded at, the type or number of livestock, details of the owner, the name and address of the person who's going to receive the livestock, the address they're being transported to, as well as details of the name and telephone number of the driver and the vehicle registration number. Now, obviously, all these details help us. If we do get a stock theft down the track, we can use these details to work backwards throughout that animal's movement from start to finish. This is the other example of a document that could be carried, which is a National Vendor Declaration, or an NVD. They're used by farmers who are accredited through the Livestock Production Assurance Program, which is most red meat farmers nowadays. And probably many of you are part of that program. They contain similar details to a transported stock statement and are in fact treated as a transported stock statement by law, so they're able to be used as a movement document if cattle are being moved by road. Electronic NVDs or e-NVDs are also now available through your online LPA account. These are becoming more and more popular, and we're seeing them very frequently now. We highly recommend their use as they're easy to fill out and you won't run out of pages in your book. Possibly one small downside at present is that you still have to print off the e-NVD and carry that physical copy with you. However, that could change in the future. Now, on to some common issues when we stop livestock carriers, and these are probably the things that could affect you. Now, as long as you make an honest and genuine attempt to fill out a transported stock statement or a national vendor declaration, very rarely will you be fined for not completing it completely if we pick up on a small mistake. As I said earlier, officers aren't being asked to issue fines for minor breaches as part of Operation Stock Check, but more to focus on ensuring compliance, educating carriers or farmers, and weeding out the bad operators and the stock thieves. In saying that, if we pick up on people who are, repeatedly coming under notice for the same thing, or not making any attempts to comply with the law, they could face fines up to $440 or have to face court. Now, probably the most common mistakes that we experience when it comes to transported stock statements or NVDs, the most obvious and the most common one probably would be people not carrying any documents at all. Obviously, the legislation says a document must be carried, so not carrying one at all pretty much goes against everything in the legislation. The next, probably most commonly encountered issue would be a poor description of livestock, as well as details being left off the document. Particularly, we find the details of the driver or the person responsible for the livestock during their movement, which is your Part B on an MVD, is often left off, whether by mistake or just being in a rush. But it is really important because we do need to know who actually transported the livestock and what vehicle they were carried on. It may be the case that there's more than one owner's livestock on one vehicle. If there was to be a disease outbreak, for example, they need to track back and see which livestock were on that particular vehicle, which wouldn't be on there if the Part B is not completed. And same with stock theft. It just helps us know which vehicle those livestock were carried on. Now, you might think, and a lot of people ask this, why do you bother? Obviously, you might think criminals just find a way to record livestock on a TSS or an MVD, or they can just say they forgot their paperwork, so why do we bother enforcing it? And while it's true that 99.9% of people that are transporting livestock are doing the right thing, and we do find that obviously when we stop carriers, we rarely come across someone that's purposely doing the wrong thing. Even those that aren't carrying the right paperwork or incomplete paperwork are often trying to do the right thing. What we're trying to do is drive up that level of compliance, so hopefully it gets to a point that all producers and transporters are complying all of the time. And if we can get it to the point that all farmers and legitimate stock transporters are carrying correct paperwork, what this will help is make our general duties officers, who may not have too much knowledge about rural industry and procedures, it'll help them immediately identify someone who may be suspicious by not having their paperwork. So obviously, if half the population aren't complying, there's no paperwork, it's very hard to spot the rogue operators. Even with those criminals who are smart enough to use an NVD or TSS to try to legitimise stolen stock movements, it provides us with a starting point to be able to audit the property they have access to, gain some sort of idea of their movements, and begin to build a bigger picture on their pattern or level of offending. We do find often they will use an NVD or a TSS, and it just gives us one more little piece to work backwards and try to piece together what's happened. It's obviously not the be-all and end-all, but it is a valuable tool in our arsenal to help us investigate and trace stolen livestock. Not only do TSSs and NVDs provide traceability in terms of stolen livestock, but they can be critical in the event of a disease outbreak or where chemicals or other residues are detected in meat, and that's why they're just so important these days. The red meat and livestock industry is worth more than $18 billion to the Australian economy. It's obviously worth a lot to a lot of farmers, and a serious disease outbreak could decimate the livelihoods of tens of thousands of farmers. One other aspect that we'll talk about is fit to load. Now, more and more, animal welfare is coming under the microscope, and it's in everyone's best interest to ensure that there's no additional criticism about the way livestock are transported. Following the guidelines will make sure that animals are looked after first of all, and obviously everyone knows that farmers want to look after their animals. And it will help ensure that farmers aren't unfairly targeted when it comes to animal welfare. As far as fit to load, an animal is not fit for the journey if it's not strong enough to walk on its normally bearing weight on all of its legs, or if it's not strong enough to undertake the journey overall. Also, if it's severely emaciated or visibly dehydrated, and that's something we did experience a bit, particularly during the height of the drought. They're also not fit for the journey if they're suffering from severe visible distress or injury, or if they've got a condition that could cause increased pain or distress during transport. Obviously, things like heavily pregnant livestock. Also, if an animal's blind in both eyes, it's not fit for the journey. If you do identify an animal which meets any of these criteria, then you must not transport it. It's just not worth it. You can choose to either treat the animal and transport it when it recovers and is fit to load, or you may decide to humanely destroy the animal, or obviously consult a veterinary surgeon and only transport the animal under veterinary advice. If you're unsure, the rural crime investigators have fit to load booklets which they can distribute to you if you need one, and it's a very handy little reference guide which just covers off on the main things to look out for. So they're really useful if you're not really sure about what you should be looking out for, and just contact your nearest rural crime investigator who would be happy to send one out to you. Now, as far as how you can help the police, we're really appealing for those obviously good members of the community to help us identify the dodgy operators. Obviously, you're our eyes and ears out in those communities. We try to be everywhere at once, but we just can't be. If you believe you know of someone who's stealing livestock or transporting stolen livestock, please pass that information on. Now, you can either speak to your local police, a rural crime investigator, or call Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. And obviously through that line, you can stay anonymous if you want to. Please don't be afraid to pick up the phone, as even the smallest piece of information can really help us, and it really can just be that missing piece of the puzzle that we need to lock up a livestock thief. Particularly information such as vehicle registration numbers or what time or day people are suspiciously moving livestock. Now, you may be reluctant, thinking that you've got no proofs that they're stealing livestock, or you don't want to accuse someone without knowing 100%. But really, that's our job. We'll use those little bits and pieces of information to either confirm or eliminate that person as a stock thief. So don't be afraid to pass on the information. If we do receive information, we don't go straight out and accuse that person of stock theft. We've got all sorts of mechanisms that we can use to try to firm up that information. If you do need more information about stock movements and the laws when it comes to moving livestock, the DPI website is actually a very useful source of information, and they've got lots of fact sheets and also just short videos on there that can really help clear up a lot of questions quickly. So we do encourage you to jump on the DPI website if you do have any concerns with what you should be doing. You're also able to speak to your local land services office, or of course your nearest rural crime investigator can help you. As far as reporting rural crime in general, if we don't know about the crime, we can't respond and we can't investigate. So we really do encourage you for all types of rural crime, and I'm not just talking stock theft here, but anything from cut fences to trespassing to stolen property, any of those crimes that impact upon the rural industries. We really want to know about it so that we know where to target and we know where to throw our resources. There's several ways you can report rural crime. You can call your local police station, like I said, or for non-urgent crime, you can call the police assistance line on 131 444. You can also, as I said, call Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000 to report information anonymously. You can even report non-emergencies online now via the community portal. And you might think, you're not speaking to a police officer face to face, so they're not going to get the right information, but really through any of these methods, the information, if it's relevant to us, will flow to us and we'll follow up those reports. We really just want to emphasise that please report all crime, and we really need for you to help us collect all the pieces of that puzzle. As far as connecting with us, the Rural Crime Prevention Team has a Facebook page where we highlight our work, some of our investigations, operations that we run, and incidents of rural crime, and many other points such as the outcomes of those investigations, what current things we're focusing on during our operations, and relevant information pertaining to rural industries such as what you need to know when moving livestock, and other tips such as the hunter fatigue campaign or farm crime surveys. So we really do encourage you to jump on that rural crime Facebook page if you are on Facebook. You'll see a lot of interesting things pop up on there. It might just give you some good ideas to help prevent yourself becoming a victim of crime. The page covers all of regional New South Wales and provides you an opportunity to see what we, the Rural Crime Prevention Team, do on a daily basis. It's also an additional tool to help you connect with the community and also make a point to offenders that we're targeting you. We will find you, and our connection with the community is becoming stronger, which weakens your opportunity to commit crime on our farmers. We really do encourage everyone to like that Facebook page if you can, and you can find it by typing Rural Crime Prevention Team in the search bar on Facebook. That brings us to the end of the information session here. We really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight, and we thought this topic might bring up a lot of questions. So please, if you've got any questions and you haven't sent them through, send them through on the chat bar there. Ian, have we had any questions come through?
Okay, thank you very much, Bennett, and thank you everyone for participating. My name is Anne and I'm a part of the Rural Crime Prevention Team. What I will do is ask for all the detectives to turn their cameras on, and we will commence with some of the questions that we've had come through. Wonderful. Okay, gentlemen, and I will share the questions around everybody. First off, I'm going to direct this one to, we might go with Ty tonight. So Ty, they've got a question here from Gary, and Gary would like to know, where do I get a TSS or an NVD from?
In relation to both the TSS and MVD, you should be able to get them from your local land services. They should have them readily available there for you to collect, as was explained by Detective Sergeant Nolan throughout the presentation.
Excellent, lovely. And Bennett, can you just tell, is there anyone in regards to the NVD, is there any other way, like just so that we can clarify the question, is there any other way that they can, yep.
NVDs, you can obviously order through your NLIS or your LPA account, or you can phone the LPA, and that's how you can get additional NVD books. They were providing free NVD books with the updated forms, so it's worth reaching out to them.
Excellent, thank you, Bennett. Okay, now I'm going to throw it to, I'm going to throw this question out to three of the guys. So Damien, Andy, and Cameron. So the question I've got here, and this one's come through from Beth, and thank you very much, Beth, I appreciate it. If I've got a load of cattle on which we need to go on 2 trucks, do both drivers have to carry an NVD, or do I just one of the drivers need to carry that? Okay, Damien, I'm going to throw. Yep, go, Cameron.
In essence, it's the person who is in charge of the vehicle, carrying the vehicle, has to have one each. So there's 2 vehicles. Each of those carriers have to have one for each load. In essence, because it's the driver of the vehicle at the time is in charge of the stock, and for whatever reason, they may get separated or go on a different route. You just need one for the stock that you're carrying, in short.
Thank you very much,
Can I just
Cameron.
add to that?
Absolutely.
Can I just add to that? Sorry. So in that circumstance where there's one load of cattle split between 2 trucks, one NVD, it is a requirement that both trucks, so all trucks have to have the documentation, and it is acceptable, and this is in accordance with the Local Land Services Act for this lead truck to, if it works out that way, to have the original copy of the TSS or NVD, and it's acceptable for the second vehicle to have a copy of that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Damien, for clarifying that. Okay, Andy, we're not going to leave you out there. So we've got a question here. So I've got a question that's come in from Dan, and Dan's asking, do I have to put down the PIC number that the stock is being moved to? So he understands that he's got to put his, but does he actually have to record the PIC number of where his animal is going to?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dan. No, you don't. You don't need the PIC number, just the name and address of the person that's receiving them.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, I'm going to throw this one back to you, Damien, because we haven't actually directed one straight to you. So I've received this one has come from Adam. So Adam's saying that he's a livestock carrier, and when I collect stock, sometimes the sale yards don't have a weigh bill TSS for me in the office. How do I transport them without one?
Okay, thanks, Adam. It's a good one, and it's one that this is a question that applies to a lot of transporters that we encounter in and around sale yards. So the explanation is that there are a number of options according to the legislation for you to have, for who can generate the appropriate paperwork for you to transport livestock out of a marketing centre. So the legislation says the owner is responsible for generating that paperwork, but the definition of the owner under the Local Land Services Act can also include a person, an employee of the owner, or a person responsible for the livestock. So effectively that means that there's an option for a livestock agent, if they happen to be in charge of the livestock at the time, or sale yards operators, because the agents might have gone home by the time you're loading out, or the owner, or yourself, if you happen to be in charge of those stocks. So in other words, you get them out of the yards, they're on your truck, you're then in charge of them, so you're entitled to fill out and generate the appropriate paperwork for that journey. Now the catch is, even though there's those options there, it is not a legislative requirement for any particular one of those options to fill that paperwork out. Where it becomes a problem is once you hit a public road with that load of livestock, you must have that paperwork. It's inconsequential who fills it out, just so long as it's done in accordance with the legislation, but you don't want to be in the circumstance where you've driven out of a livestock marketing centre with a load and you don't have the paperwork. It is not necessarily up to the agent or any other person. They're just the options for who can fill out the paperwork, but ultimately it'll be the truck driver, if the decision is taken to leave those yards and hit a public road, it will be you that will be committing the offence for not having the appropriate paperwork. I hope that explains it sufficiently for you, Adam. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Damien. And Adam's just sent through to say that, yes, that's answered his question for him. So ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, that was the last of the questions that have come through. I would like to thank everyone who has participated in all our webinars. I would also like to thank the Rural Crime Prevention Team officers here for participating in all the webinars that we've had. So this is our 6th one that we've had over the last 3 weeks. And also a huge thank you to New South Wales Farmers for allowing this to occur. So I'm just going to throw it to the gentleman that we've got, the members of our Rural Crime Prevention Team. If anyone would like to say anything to the audience, now is your chance. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes if there's anyone who'd like to say anything.
Yeah, and I'll just say something that's okay. I'd just like to back up what you said there, especially in terms of the New South Wales farmers, their support through to COVID times. We found it's been pretty difficult for us to get out and about and meet people one-on-one, and we do like doing that. And you can't beat that personal interaction. But we've shown that we can achieve that connectivity with our farmers. We thank New South Wales farmers for that. And there's always times when there are people that can't be present to watch these the webinar and watch them live and ask questions. But this is not the end of it. We look to grow this and look for other ideas. So we're really keen to get some feedback in respect of what you'd like to hear, how it went, and how we can do it better. Because I think this is the beginning of something great, and we're keen to help the farmers to connect with the police, and not just us, but our uniformed police, so that we can all tackle rural crime together. So I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of the Rural Crime Prevention Team to making it happen, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm now going to hand the webinar back over to New South Wales Farmers Association.
Thank you, Bennett, for your presentation and valuable suggestions for tackling rural crime. I'm sure everyone will have found some very useful ideas to take away and put into practice. I would also like to thank the New South Wales PRCP team and Dan, our tech guru, for making these valuable webinars possible. Lastly, thank you to everyone for joining in. And as I say, if you're not already a member of New South Wales Farmers Association, you really should be. Thank you.